Hey everybody, how you guys doing? Mark from Northeast Bass Fishing, and I just edited some clips from my fishing trip yesterday. I wasn't, I wasn't planning on going out, and I kind of last minute decided to get up and get the electric boat ready and go out for a few hours, and it turned out to be just an awesome day. And I was just kind of working the spinnerbait and targeting, just kind of covering water along the shoreline. And like the minute I got to this bank, I just started catching them, and I just, pretty much caught them all day. Just throwing that spinnerbait around. And I did, as you'll see, I mixed in a few jig fish, but really the spinnerbait was definitely the way to go. Those fish were just lined up perfectly in the morning for it. And, there was a point where it would seem like I got a bite, whether he got in a boat or not. There was something flashing at it, or I caught him, for about a half hour, 45 minutes there, where it was like, how many fish are on this shoreline? So there's another one. They're all largemouth. This lake does have smallmouth too, but I did not get any. A lot of them were that, 1.5 to 2 pound size, but you'll see there's a couple nice ones that got mixed in. But overall, really just excellent day. They were just, it was just, one of those days you just enjoy in the fall. The weather was supposed to get real windy later in the day. As you can see right now, it's pretty calm. The wind does pick up throughout the day, but never as bad as it was supposed to get. And even later last night, when it was supposed to get really bad, it was never too bad. But even without, big wind or anything, I think they were just kind of sitting up on the bank around the rock, just kind of hanging out, waiting to ambush whatever came by. They were definitely, in the feeding mode on this shoreline especially. I guess I would kind of consider this I would consider this the, I guess, north shoreline, the way this lake runs. This lake kind of runs east to west. So the shoreline to my right was really, loaded up with fish. And there was a bunch of times where, I'd see the largemouth come out and just swat at it and miss it. And, but most of them got hooked up. This is just a kind of a point here that I was coming around. This is a nice one. This was probably the biggest fish at this point of the day, but he does get off. You'll see, pops right off next to the boat. As I was mentioning with the spinnerbaits on one of my videos recently, when you catch a lot of fish on a spinnerbait, I tend to just swing them into the boat. Eventually, your thin wire spinnerbaits are going to break. But this one didn't, so this one is still hanging in there. This is one of the old Strike King 38 specials, a spinnerbait. You see pops off there. It's a spinnerbait that I love. A lot of mine I've, worked on just kind of putting them, keeping them in working order. I've changed blades on them. This one's got a brand new skirt on it, new trailer and everything. So, I just it's the one I had tied on from the last time I was fishing. So I just started throwing it and they were eating it. This fish in particular, he came flying up behind it and nailed it. Like as I was getting, and he was like swimming right at the boat. Like I saw him come flying up and just nail it. And this is a nice bass right here. And they were just, they were definitely on the spinnerbait bite. They were very aggressive in the morning, especially. It's just, you just enjoy it when it happens. I just hit it right. They were definitely in an eating mode. I think more so probably early in the morning. It did, the bite did calm down a little bit in the afternoon, but it never really stopped, quite honestly. And, you just go out and you just enjoy it. But you can see that's that 38 special. I really like those hammered blades. I just think they work great. I've got that trailer on there. And I don't know if it would have mattered I think probably any spinnerbait I was throwing probably would have worked. Here you can see a lot of that eelgrass that's still in the lake. I think the fish were coming out of that in some of the spots. And if I remember right, this is a pretty good one right here. I think at this point of the day, yeah, because I grabbed the net here. At this point of the day, this was the best fish. This was a nice chunk. Just came flying out of that eelgrass and nailed that spinnerbait. So I did try to use the net to try to, more so for not wanting to swing those bigger fish in the boat and, eventually break my spinnerbait, which is possible. But, at this point of the morning, it's like, wow, this is just a good day. So that's a nice chunk right there. I didn't weigh these fish. The bigger ones, I would assume they're in that 3 to 3.5. I don't think anything was 4. But you can see it's a nice looking fish right there. And it's just throwing them back. And now I'm just working down the shoreline. Now I'm on the other side of the lake. And I had gone about, I'd probably gone, maybe a half hour with nothing. I just was kind of covering the water quick, no bites, and then started throwing this. I was throwing some other stuff and then threw the spinnerbait again and started getting bit. So there's another nice largie on the spinnerbait. You can see right there, another nice largemouth. And at this point of the day, it's all spinnerbait fish. All spinnerbait largemouth. And really, there isn't any wind at this point of the day. There's really no wind to speak of yet. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Here's the first jig bite I got. I started throwing, and see by that eelgrass I threw this jig. He does get off. It's not a big fish, but there was a dock there, and there was some eelgrass. I said, let me try the jig. So I threw the jig. This little guy hits, and there, pops off. So I did get a bite on the jig. He did get off. Just kept working the spinnerbait, and the jig's down the shoreline. I'm back to the spinnerbait here. And not surprisingly, a bass hits. So just, working those rocks, working that shoreline. There's those 1.5 to 2 pound largies are just all over the place. Just all over the place. Just kind of, up by those rocks. Feeding on whatever they're feeding on. I might guess bait, because the way they're chasing the spinnerbait. But it's at this point in the morning, it's a pretty decent day. It's not windy at all. Overcast, but not bad. Here's the first fish. I did throw the open water sniper around a little bit, so I was just kind of chucking it out. There's a lot of rock in this area and just dragging it along. This one, he pretty much got it the minute it hit the water, it felt like. So, I did throw the sniper around a little bit at this point and caught this one. I think if I just threw the jig, I'm sure I would have had a pretty decent day too, because it's a good jig lake. But the spinnerbait was just so good. But it's always nice to catch a few on the jig. So there's an open water sniper largemouth right there. That's the one I caught on that throughout the day. I did get hung up a few times, and I didn't want to lose it in this area because it's pretty gnarly. But nice open water sniper largie there to add to the totals at that point. See that old float right there is in pretty bad shape. I guess I don't know when they're going to bring that in for the winter, or they're not. But that thing's in pretty bad shape. Here I'm coming up another shoreline, and I start throwing the spinnerbait again. And there was a bunch of fish around this point. As you'll see in the video here, I think I got 4 or 5 off just this area here. And a couple of them really hammered the spinnerbait. But this was the first one to let me kind of know they were around. As I approach that point you see straight ahead. And this is kind of an area where I do catch some smallies, but it was pretty much just largies this day. I did not see a smallie, or catch a smallie, or see one anywhere. The largies were definitely on. Water was about 46 when I got there. It was 48 when I left. Nice. You see the nice colors on these bass in that colder water. And I just kept working this spinnerbait along this area, and it was pretty good. As you can see, I didn't go up much further and got another one. I think the next one is one that really hammered it. You saw them. A lot of these fish, you actually saw them flash and just nail the spinnerbait. Some of them are a little skinny, but they're all really long. But they're all in decent shape. I'm sure they'll start feeding up as winter approaches here, if they're based on how they were acting yesterday. This one here really hammered the spinnerbait. I chucked it right up on the point. You saw the flash go right across and him just come out and just hammer it. And I was thinking, this has got to be a big one, just the way he hit it. And it turns out he's a pretty decent one. But that's it, 38 special, 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, white chartreuse trailer hook. Some of them got both hooks, some just got the trailer hook. You can see that's a pretty decent largie right there. At this point, I'm kind of like, if they want to jump off, it's okay. I've seen them already. But that was a bigger fish, so I didn't want to swing them in and put too much stress on the metal, the arm of that spinnerbait. But you can see that's a nice chunker right there. And he housed it. That was one of the best, actual hits of the day as far as the fish just nailing it. So they were coming up, full speed at this spinnerbait. Just, the perfect spinnerbait bite day that you really like. And then I'm just working around the point here, throwing across it. As you can imagine, since you're seeing it, there's going to be another one hanging out here. I think I caught two like back to back right here really quick, just right on this point. And at this point of the day, it's you know, the wind hasn't really kicked up yet. As you can see, it's pretty calm. The sun actually started to peek out a little bit there, and it got nice, but that didn't last. Later in the day, the wind got pretty rough there for a little bit, but I was getting ready to leave anyway. And this was like the next cast practically. Largie comes up and hits it. But I'm just working, you know, working the shoreline, throwing it up there. I'm probably sitting in 8 feet, 6 feet, whatever, just throwing up to the shoreline. And they're just all around the rock, that shoreline rock. They're just all around it. All pretty fish. And then I think this is where I moved. Yeah, I went back and fished that area that I had fished earlier. And I wanted to flip some of that eelgrass with the jig. And so I'm getting nothing really. I throw the jig in there, and then this is the best fish of the day. I mean, I didn't feel the hit. I just saw my line. My line just came flying back at me. So I knew there was somebody on there, and this is what I estimate to be the best fish of the day on the jig. Just flipping that eelgrass. I'd gone back and fished the area that you saw all those fish earlier, and I threw the spinnerbait through there, and I only had one hit, and he missed it. So I was like, okay, so maybe they were just on in the morning. But I definitely wanted to come back and hit that eelgrass again. You can see that's a nice chunk. That's that 1/2 ounce queen tackle jig, that coral hors d'oeuvre trailer. I was going to put a pork trailer on, but I already had the plastic trailer on. But that, I believe, is my best fish of the day right there. He's just a nice, solid keeper. You know, nice jig fish. I mean, he just came flying at the boat with that jig in his mouth. So I decided to just, you know, it was getting towards the end of the day. The wind was starting to pick up. It was getting a little chilly. So I kind of figured I'd work up that good shoreline the opposite way and try it from another angle and see how the bite was. And just as I got to that point on the other side there, I catch this nice one. You know, so I thought if I showed them another angle with a spinnerbait, maybe I'd catch a few that were still over there. So that was a nice keeper there. Just coming up with now the bank on my left side. I remembered actually to move the camera so you could somewhat see what's going on. But they really, you know, I think the ones that were up there feeding, I had caught them earlier. It didn't necessarily reload in like a couple hours that much, and I'm coming back to that other point and working back towards the ramp. And I believe this is the last fish of the day before I called it a day. Just working that point. This guy comes up and hits it, and that's it. I believe this is the last one that I edited into the final day of fishing. So as you can see, guys, just a great day. One of those days where, you know, I don't know if I want to go fishing, and I decide to, and it's great. So you know what? If you're thinking of going, get out there. If the weather's decent, you know, get out there, go throw a spinnerbait around, go throw a jig around. Especially if you're here like me in the Northeast, how many more days am I going to have that I can get out? And I'm definitely glad I did it. You know, the fishing was just great. The fish were very cooperative, and when they do what they're supposed to, it makes it fun. So, you know, a really, really solid day overall. Spinnerbait number 1, and then the jig number 2. I threw the net around a little, nothing going with that. I never threw anything else, but great day. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon on YouTube. Mark out.